As the Supreme Court takes a very dark view on podcaster Ranveer Alabadia for a joke that he cracked on YouTuber Samai Raina's show, friends, today we must ask ourselves, what does it say about India's legal priorities when the police forces in Maharashtra, Assam and Rajasthan are hunting down a content creator as though he were a fugitive of the highest order? What does it say about the state of our judiciary when the Supreme Court, burdened with over 5 crore pending cases, including 83,000 of its own, finds the time to take offense at a filthy joke on an online comedy show? Let me be clear, this is not about endorsing tasteless humor. Ranveer Alabadia's remarks made on Samai Raina's show India's Got Latent, a show known for its shock and cringe comedy laced with disgusting expletives, were not to anyone's liking. They were crude, they were inappropriate, and they were in many ways offensive. But should bad comedy, however distasteful, become a matter of national policing? Should it justify a multi-state police pursuit that treats a podcaster like a hardened criminal? Or is there something more at play here? I am genuinely asking. It's not a loaded question. It is hard to ignore the disturbing pattern of selective outrage and selective law enforcement. This is not the first time Samai Raina's show has featured humor that pushes boundaries of so-called decency. So why, out of all the content that has already aired, has this particular clip of Ranveer making a horrible, disgusting joke triggered the highest levels of legal scrutiny in the country? The machinery of the state does not simply lurch into motion without reason. Of course, one can explain it away given Ranveer Alabadia's enormous reach and popularity, as also Samai Raina's. They are some of the most watched content creators in the country. But they are hardly the only Indian influencers or comics using obscene language or saying shocking things in order to stir up their audiences. It seems to many that this incident is being used as a pretext, a convenient test case to set a precedent for something far bigger, perhaps an attempt to normalize state intervention in online content to ease the way for broader censorship, whether on YouTube or on OTT. And how do you sell censorship to the public? By choosing a case that nobody instinctively wants to defend, by targeting a piece of content that is so crude, so distasteful, that no one will stand up for its right to exist. The tactic is simple. First come for the voices that few will miss. Then, once the precedent is set, it becomes easier to extend these powers to more voices, to all voices that inconvenience those in power. YouTube is filled with obscene jokes, profanity-laced rants, and even violent speech. In English, in Indian languages, in Bhojpuri, in Hindi, in Tamil, in Kannada, no matter what, there's a whole ocean of obscene content out there that nobody seems to have a problem with. Content that should shock the conscience of any viewer is easily accessible, often garnering millions of views without any quote-unquote consequence. And yet, amidst this vast ocean of offensive material, a relatively puerile joke has somehow managed to trigger the full might of the state. The sudden and disproportionate reaction demands scrutiny. Why now and why this? If the concern is truly obscenity, then where has this moral outrage been hiding? Why does enforcement appear so selective, so targeted? The reality is, obscenity is not the real issue here. I think the real issue here is control. This case is not about protecting public decency alone. It is about paving the way, perhaps, for state intervention in digital spaces. It is about setting a precedent that makes censorship more palatable by choosing a test case that is easy to vilify. This is not about one joke. This is about the broader principle of freedom of expression. It is about whether we as a nation believe in upholding that freedom, even when it comes to protecting speech we personally dislike. The Supreme Court, which should be a guardian of rights, must ask itself whether it wishes to be regarded as a defender of constitutional values or as an enabler of state censorship. Law enforcement must refocus its priorities on genuine threats to public safety and justice rather than expending its energy on policing of online comedy. The judiciary must prioritize the millions of cases waiting for justice rather than acting as an arbiter of taste on YouTube. And we the people, viewer, must remain vigilant against the steady creeping in of censorship, however it is packaged, however it is sold. Some self-righteous members of parliament have embarked on a crusade using priceless parliamentary standing committee time to discuss and scrutinize a filthy joke. I could fill a book with the things our parliamentary time should rather be spent on. But who am I? I honestly don't think this is about Ranveer Alabadia. I must confess, I have never even seen his podcast, so I'm probably a small minority. I also think his joke betrays the juvenile desperation of a wannabe whose singular motivator is attention and reach at any cost. I'm even willing to say that as a democracy, people have a right to be offended and raise the issue in court if they must. But I'm wondering, viewer, don't our state authorities have more pressing issues to attend to? No matter what you think of Beer Biceps or anybody around him and his BS, just think about this for a moment.